Welcome to Too Much Effing Perspective. I'm Alan Keller.
And I'm Alex Hoffman. It goes without saying that 11 has a very special meaning to a podcast inspired by the movie This is Spinal Tap.
I assume it has a special meaning to our listeners too, Alex.
Well, you may be right. So that's why every effing day until next Saturday, we are going to post a brand new, never before heard Spinal Tap moment from one of 11 incredible artists.
Because there's no such thing as too much effing perspective.
And we're going to test that theory, old chum. So let's crank it up to 11 and get to our second guest of 11, award-winning opera librettist and Tony-nominated Broadway lyricist, Michael Korie.
Michael has quite a story about the time his opera Harvey Milk was performed in Germany. And let's just say this tragic story about the assassination of the first openly gay man to be elected to public office in California got kind of lost in the translation.
So we did his life in 3 acts. The first act was called The Closet. And he basically gets arrested when he's 14 years old. He gets handcuffed cruising in Central Park, and he wears those handcuffs until he realizes that if he can stand up for himself as a Jewish man, he can stand up for himself as a gay man. It did very well, and then we got offered a production in Germany. I got involved to a certain degree in the translation, and then I went over for the final dress tech and the opening night. And the German director had, let's say, taken liberties. You know, they don't understand American culture the same way we do. They think they do, but they understand it in a sort of very campy old movies way. So, first of all, he took the 3 acts and comprised it into 2, which totally fucked up the form. If I wanted to write a 2-act opera, I would have. And then by opening night, the tenor playing Dan White, the assassin, got sick. And so they wanted to open the opera anyway, and the understudy didn't know the staging. So the director decided, I'm going to play Dan White in mime, and this tenor understudy will stand off to the side and sing. Anyway, this opera starts, and there's a scene actually in the closet. I dramatized what it would be like to live in a walk-in closet and have a cocktail party when Harvey Milk was closeted. But then I found out in Germany, there's no direct translation for the phrase out of the closets and into the streets, which was the chant from Stonewall. Instead, they translated closet as Klappa, and Klappa is toilet. It's those public toilets that they have in the plazas and squares in Germany. So how did they stage the scene in the closet? They staged it in a bathroom full of toilets, and everyone's standing all across the toilets. And that was the first cue. This was not going to be what I expected. There's a scene where Harvey realizes his gay consciousness and Jewish consciousness are merged. He says, my star is made of 2 triangles, one pink, one yellow. And that was an image I had found in a book about World War II and the concentration camps. That was an image that was important to me. And it was very important in the American production, where actually giant triangles came down and formed this yellow star. And then voices from inmates sing distantly in the background as he's realizing that he's one person. Well, in the German production, these voices came marching out in concentration camp uniforms, stripes, with pink and yellow triangles, and then they ripped them off like it was the Radio City Music Hall when Stonewall happened, and underneath they are dressed as the Fire Fairies in ballerina costumes, and they start dancing around and anointing Stonewall with sparks of fire and do a big choreograph, and that's Stonewall. That's supposed to be a fucking riot, but then we had the Fire Fairies. Oh my God. And then there was an intermission, and it went on in that fashion. You know, the Castro was presented as a sort of dance number from West Side Story. And finally, when this thing was over, I was so depressed. I said, I've got to get out of this town. But ever since then, I've learned not to get involved in foreign productions and translations and let them do what they want and take the royalties, because it's always going to be different. And you get to say your thing on the original production, and then goodbye, it goes out in the world, and like your children, they do what they want.
Thanks for joining us on this special episode of the TMEP show. We hope you enjoyed our second of 11 consecutive days of humbling but hilarious Spinal Tap moments.
Join us tomorrow for award-winning author David Korn, who's going to tell us about the time a mysterious stranger kept him from being tangled up in blue on Too Much Effing Perspective.
Too Much Effing Perspective is a Milwaukee Talkies original. Evergreen Podcast Network.